Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of our webinar series, Inside Immigration. Today, we're joined by panelists Stephen Green and Sonia Sidhu. Please feel free to ask any questions via the pop-up text bar on the right side of your screen, and we will do our very best to address them at the end. And if the panelists do not get to your question, you can contact them through the information provided on the screen right now. With that being said, I'll hand things over to our panelists.
Thank you, Danielle. So we'll start off with the hottest topic that's going on right now. It's the strike. This is one of the largest labor strikes in Canada history we've seen so far. We have about 150,000 public service employees that are striking. So that includes Service Canada, IRCC, IRB, CBSA. So that leaves us in this line of work wondering what's going to happen. How are these strikes going to affect our visa applications, hearings, passport renewals? This information, like we're living this live, so this information is going to change. It could change while we're talking. We're living it live. We're going to have to update it as soon as we get more information. So just keep yourself apprised. I'm sure we will post about it as it changes. But what we know right now is passport applications are really heavily impacted. So Service Canada has announced that they are only processing passport applications for emergency or humanitarian situations. So for example, if your employment requires you to have a passport and travel, and that's your source of income security, or if you need to travel for medical reasons. If you are a Canadian citizen living outside of Canada, that is deemed essential. That passport processing is not affected at this point. Citizenship applications, events, we've been advised that they're all being rescheduled. With immigration-related employments, if they are within Canada, they will be rescheduled, but if they are overseas, they will be proceeding as scheduled. The biggest impact we're going to see is with applications. So now there's not going to be any delay with submitting applications. You can go online, you can do the submissions online, but what's up in the air is what happens afterwards. How much of a delay are we going to see with the processing of the application? Now, we were just getting out, we were seeing light at the end of the tunnel with this whole backlog with the pandemic, and now we are seeing an added layer. So we're just going to have to roll with the punches as they come and see, how long is the strike lasting, how much of an effect is it going to have on this backlog that already exists. In terms of border services, they are status quo. If you have a visa, you are not affected, you can come in. With LMIA applications, we are seeing there is a pause. And there is processing for deemed essential LMIAs, but other than that, we can't even go in and submit the applications and the processing fees. Now, the biggest thing with the hearings, if your hearing is scheduled with the IAD or ID, it should proceed as is scheduled. If there is a need to cancel, like say if the Minister's Council is sick or you need to book a resumption, this is when you'll run into the issues because the scheduling department is on strike. So if you have a hearing book, try to attend it, get it done with, because if you need to delay it, you're going to be hit by the delays for the strike. And most refugee hearings right now, as we're hearing, are canceled. That's what we know right now. As time goes by, we will update you accordingly.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much, Sonia. And again, we're all waiting to see what's going to happen with the strike. There are applications that still are being assessed, but we believe that these are being assessed through various other means because we are receiving extensions of work permits as of today, extensions of visitor records inside of Canada. So there is a small amount trickling out with respect to IRCC and extensions. And talking about extensions, the next topic is the Postgraduate Special Measures Program. And what happened when COVID hit was that people that were wanting to enter Canada and study were obviously not able to. Many of our schools, our designated learning institutions, still wanted to offer the courses, and students wanted to participate in these courses. So the government went ahead and acknowledged that they're going to have to look at the postgraduate program, which many employers use, especially in this tight labor crunch that we're all experiencing. And the government prior to COVID had indicated certain requirements for postgraduate work permit eligibility, That generally being, of course, that you had to go to a designated learning institution. Your designated learning institution had to be one that was recognized, that would offer postgraduate work permits. And if you were studying online or you were studying overseas, that you could not do more than 50% of that online, otherwise you would become ineligible for a postgraduate work permit. And because of COVID and the restrictions also placed on the express entry system, where they were not doing many draws for people to apply for permanent residence, students were in a difficult position that were on postgraduate work permits or that became eligible for postgrad work permits. And the ones that were, extremely affected, because as we know, you can only get one postgraduate work permit, be it from 8 months to 3 years. Some of them were running out of time on their work permits. And when I say running out of time, maybe making them even eligible for express entry, or they had a great job, they were working and they were just sitting in the pool and they didn't know what to do with respect to possible extensions of their work permits. So the government then went ahead and announced this program to facilitate the extension of postgraduate work permits and change the rules with respect to one-time shot. You now have an opportunity to get 2 postgraduate work permits. So you can go beyond, if your work permit was, issued for 3 years, that was it. Now you can go up to actually 48 months from the original time that you were eligible for that work permit. But it's a very technical examination to see if you are eligible for the special measures that the government imposed. When I say imposed, I mean to make you, eligible for that. And it's really for people that began their postgraduate work permit eligibility program between March of 2020 and August 31st of 2022. So these temporary measures only apply to students prior to the August 31st, 2022 and beginning March 2022. And what they did was this. They said that the rule that you had to spend at least 50% of your time inside of Canada at a designated learning institution was waived. So you are eligible for a postgraduate work permit if you did all of your studying abroad during that eligibility time. So you could do 100%, up to 100% of your program outside of Canada online. And that was a huge benefit to people that weren't able to enter Canada. And, it opened up opportunities in this tight labor market for our students that studied abroad, had paid their tuition fees, and were just waiting for the opportunity to come back to Canada. But remember that if you started your program after September 1st, 2022, then you must spend at least 50% of your time inside of Canada at the institution. And the government also states that this special measures, if you are eligible to take advantage of it, is valid until August 31st of 2023. So you have to apply before that, otherwise you won't be able to take advantage of this program. So for many, students, it's a great opportunity. And it also provided them with the opportunity to extend, to get a second postgraduate work permit for a further 18 months if you had one before, because as I said, the government understood that you weren't able to come into Canada, or perhaps you were in Canada, you weren't being selected under the express entry system. So you can get an open work permit up to 18 months. And that policy started in December of 2022. So it's a great opportunity for people to extend their postgraduate work permit. And it even recognizes that if you went out of status for a certain period of time in between when your first postgrad expired and when you became eligible for your second postgrad, they're going to overlook some prohibitions if you did work illegally, if you did study illegally. So the government really tried to help so many students that, you know, were enrolled, weren't able to come here, where their postgrads had expired or were going to expire. They didn't know what to do. So again, you know, if you are an employer listening, it's a very technical examination of who is eligible to take advantage of all these special measures. And it's a great opportunity for you. And again, also special measures have been instituted for people to work off campus now, full time. And again, it's very particular with particular dates. You know, the amount of eligibility with respect to full-time studies must also be examined. So to employers, I say, look at the special measures to assist you with the, you know, the new or extended postgraduate work permit program. There are limits as to who you can employ in that area. The same thing applies to working off campus full-time. It's a great opportunity for you to reach out to students, but again, it's restricted in some ways and you must examine that very carefully. So those are my comments with respect to the postgrad, and Sonia, you can talk about the express entry.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. So express entry draws, well, we've only had one this month, which was April 12th, where we saw a drop in the amount of invitations that were issued, and the score went up for the first time this year. So we had 3,500 invites and the score was 486. In March, we saw draw over draw about 7,000 invitations being issued. So it's the first time we saw the drop. Now with the strike happening, we don't know when the next draw is. Actually, we never really knew when the next draw was going to be because there was really no trends to follow this year so far. We're hopeful we get a draw hopefully this week, and we'll just be able to see how things are going. But we don't see things dropping below the 480 mark anytime soon if you look at the amount of people in the pool. Now, in terms of the OINP draws, we did see 2 draws this month. We did see a master's and PhD grad stream draw. Those are without job offers. So the master's was 52 points or higher, and the PhD was 48 points or higher. And in that draw, we also saw an economic mobility pathway project invite for 6 invites, and that's for skilled refugee workers with job offers. And then on April 11th, we did see an in-demand skill stream draw with 30 points or higher. Now, the thing with the OINP, we are in the first quarter of the year, it's a quota system. So if you guys are qualifying or you have your employees qualifying for these programs, it's really important to get in very quickly because now we'll start seeing a staggering of less draws as, you know, quotas are very highly measured in the beginning of the year with OINP, and then we stagger off. So if you do qualify for the master's and the PhD, especially because you do have eligibility requirements, now's the time to get in before we start seeing a staggering of the amount of draws we're seeing. In terms of the Canadian-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel, this measure was introduced, which now has been renewed because it was set to expire March 31st. It has been extended till July 15th, 2023, so just a short extension. This program was created for authorization for emergency travel in support of those affected by the Russian invasion in Ukraine. It was also for individuals that are already in Canada, where they had the option to extend their temporary status. So if you are in those situations, given that it's a short extension, get yourself in, take advantage of this measure, because you don't know if it's going to be renewed for a second time.
Right. And also, you know, I would also check out some of the other special programs with respect to Turkish nationals. They have a special program for them. With respect to Iranian nationals, a special program. And also Hong Kong nationals, they had amended the eligibility requirements for certain pathways. You used to have, you were eligible in the limit of your previous education had to be within the past 5 years. They've now extended that to be within the past 10 years. So they're trying to make it easier for people from Hong Kong. So it's really important. You know, it never used to be where we would check the nationality of someone, but the government really now has developed so many programs based on nationality that it's important to check to see what is out there with respect to authorization to enter, authorization to work, authorization to apply for work permits within inside of Canada. All those things are constantly changing, and we'll have to see what the government's going to come up with next with respect to the strike.
So I think that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, and a special thanks to Stephen and Sonia for sharing their expert knowledge. If you'd like to discuss today's topics in more detail, please reach out and book a consultation. The details can be found on the screen now, and I encourage you all to sign up for our e-alerts and follow us on social media to keep up to date with the latest developments inside Canadian immigration. Thanks again, and have a good day.
Thank you.